Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council members, city officials, and our streaming audience. I would like to welcome you to the February 14th City Council meeting. We have 5 items on our agenda this evening. We're meeting here in chambers with safety restrictions for public attendance and streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. Moving forward, if you would, Ms. Lambert, please continue with the roll call of members.
Thank you, President Geringer. Greg Phillips.
Here.
Payne.
Here.
Nickerson.
Here.
Barrow.
Here.
Henderson.
Here.
Gillum.
Here.
Preston.
Here.
Anthony Phillips.
Here.
Prohl.
Here.
Thank you. This time, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, everyone. The minutes of the previous meeting have been distributed for review. If we have any additions or corrections for the minutes, do I have a motion to accept the minutes as they are? Ms. Payne, seconded by Ms. Henderson. Roll call on the motion to accept the minutes.
Payne.
Yes.
Nickerson.
Yes.
Barrow. Henderson.
Yes.
Gillum.
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
Anthony Phillips.
Yes.
Prohl.
Yes.
Greg Phillips.
Yes.
The minutes have been accepted. We'll now go to the Reports Committee. We'll begin with our Community Affairs Committee. Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, President Geringer. Community Affairs does have item number 1 on the agenda this evening. It is at a first reading. It is a resolution granting use of a certain portion of 2nd Street to the Buck 50 Inc. from the 21st of April of this year through April 23rd for its annual Buck 50 relay race, and that will just move on to a second reading. And that is all that Community Affairs has at this time. Thank you.
Next, we'll move to Human Resources. Ms. Payne.
Thank you, President Geringer. We do not have an item on the agenda this evening. However, we did have 2 committee meetings this past week. The first one on assignment 21-110, and that was the special committee that was assigned to review council members' terms and look at possibly moving from 2-year to 4-year terms. We will continue to have additional meetings. We are not ready to act on this at this time. The second meeting we had was on assignment 21-104, and that's to update pay and other benefits of classified and non-classified and management level employees. Mrs. Spetnagel attended that meeting to share information with the committee. And that takes care of my report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to our Development Committee. Ms. Nickerson.
Thank you, President Geringer. Development has nothing on the agenda tonight, and therefore we have nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to Finance Committee. Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, President Geringer. Yes, we have 2 items tonight. Number 2 on the legislation list is an order reappropriating funds that we're still trying to close up from 2021 purchase orders that are past due, and we're going to be doing that on an emergency basis. Number 3, the second one, another ordinance for a temporary part-time deputy clerk. I do also believe that this is for retro pay, which we would like to get done as soon as possible, which is why we're doing that on an emergency basis as well. And at the appropriate time, I would like to waive the 3-read rules, I believe, on both of those. And at the appropriate time, the reasoning for that, I'm going to let Auditor Spetnagel explain that. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Parks and Recreation. Ms. Henderson.
Thank you, President Geringer. Parks and Rec
does not have any items on the agenda tonight. However, I wanted to give a brief update. So on the tourism front, the wayfinding app that I mentioned at our last meeting is continuing to move forward, and still hopeful that it will launch in early March. I will try to post updates on Facebook as I hear if there's something important between meetings. Another important date coming up will be March 5th is Statehood Day, which will be celebrated at the Ross County Heritage Center, the Lucy Webb Hayes and David Nickens Center. And then coming up on May 2nd at 11 a.m. Will be the Hospitality Pineapple Awards Banquet. So this is an awards ceremony for local hospitality. Nominations for the awards are being taken at this time. I shared a post on my Facebook earlier today where you can fill out the nominations page. So if you know someone that has been a fantastic host, write their name in and get that sent in. And then as far as the park side goes, one event that we have coming up on Saturday, March 12th at 9 a.m. is the Leprechaun Chase 5K. That'll be down in the park. More details can be found on Facebook, or you're welcome to reach out to me. My committee met earlier on assignment 22-007 on the downtown street closures for the Feast of the Flowering Moon. There are some more details that we need to gather. We're hoping to move things down further into the park. So we're looking at that avenue. So I just want to give you a quick update on that, and that is all I have.
Thank you. Next up is Safety Service Committee. Ms. Preston.
Thank you, President. So we have 2 items on the agenda tonight. Tony Mr. Phillips kind of talked about number 3. It's going to be a first reading. No, correction. It's going to be declaring an emergency. It's the temporary part-time deputy clerk position. Mrs. Spetnagel is going to explain that a little bit in nature. This was something that was on the agenda the previous year and had not been taken care of yet. And then the second one is number 4. It's a first reading of an ordinance amending section 351.13 of the codified ordinance of the city of Chiillicothe. It has to do with parking, the 48-hour street parking. It's amending some language in that ordinance. We also had a committee meeting on the 26th of January, and that was in regards to nuisance enforcement. And we're going to be meeting again in regards to that request. That's it.
Thank you. Next up is Engineering Committee. Mr. Farrow.
Thank you. Engineering Committee has item number 5 on the agenda tonight. First reading of an ordinance allowing a covered entry at 14 and 16 East 2nd Street to encroach onto the sidewalk and city right-of-way and relocating a street light and sign at the property owner's expense. This item was approved by the Design Review Board in 2019, and all the necessary documents have been submitted to the engineering department. We are ready to move forward with this, and it should move on to a second reading. So, thank you.
Next up, City Services and Transit. Ms. Gillum.
Thank you, President. This evening, Transit has nothing on the agenda, and we therefore have nothing to report. Thank you.
And finally, our Utilities Committee. Mr. Prohl.
The Utilities Department does not have any items on tonight's agenda, but since there's so many people here, I feel compelled to say something. So on behalf of the Utilities Department, drink more water. It's good for you and it helps the city. Thanks a lot. That's all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prohl. From there, we'll move on to the reports from our officials. Our Mayor, Mr. Luke Feeney.
I'm green. Thank you, President Geringer. With respect to tonight's agenda, I will offer my support of those items. that were put forward for passage this evening. I think Auditor Spetnego is going to touch on a couple of those in further detail. In terms of other items, I just want to report on a few items of city business. A couple items over the past several weeks that I would say are noteworthy because they were not newsworthy. Things that happen within the city oftentimes go under the radar that I think I could do a better job of relaying to the public. So the first of those is something that the fire department does sadly too frequently, but last week they handled a house fire. Dangerous situation. It was a situation where upon first call, we believe that there were 2 missing individuals. The house fire was concluded successfully without any injuries. The 2 people found, but just something that serves as a reminder for me of the dangers of that job. So I just want to mention that just happening last week. And then 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had an incident. Police department was involved in a situation where we had an individual who was not only a danger to himself, but a danger to others. Very scary situation that involved multiple units from the police department and involved a situation that is something that I think is all too familiar from television when it ends badly. In this situation, the police department acted with, I think, incredible calm, resolved the situation in a non-lethal way to the individual. My understanding is that individual is now able to get some help. But another thing that could have been a very bad newsworthy event for the city, but is otherwise under the radar because of the good work that those 2 departments do. The third item, and maybe I'll offer this as a Valentine's thank you, but gets a lot of attention, and that is the snow and ice removal from our service department. And I just want to thank them because there is a lot of attention on the work that they do, and they take a lot of pride in it, and they do a good job. And Safety Service Director Carmen here and his crew out all hours of the night, and police and fire too, working through the snow and ice to keep us safe. So I just want to thank them for the good work that they do publicly. And then finally, on an operations note, as many of you know, January 1 marked new operations for our transit system, a reinvention of the system. Really, I think for the first time, probably since its inception, we've really taken a new approach, and that is to offer a hybrid version of our transit system, which is partially on demand and partially fixed route. So in the month of January, with that new system, we offered 2,223 on-demand trips. So that's 2,223 new trips in the new system to 300 unique riders. 223 of those riders had not used the transit on-demand or paratransit system before. So new riders using the new system, 1,636 riders using our newly designed fixed route system, so a more efficient system, which has been, I think, a benefit to the public. There are lots of good anecdotes from the past month in that new system, but my favorite is the story of a homeless veteran who on the same day took a fixed route to a job hiring event and then used the on-demand system to go to the interview, got hired, and is now using the on-demand system to go to and from work. So there are several stories like that, but just within the first 31 days, it's really exciting to see it being used in a way that we thought could. And the other thing I'll add is that it's with no additional expense to the taxpayer to just provide a better service. So thank you to our transit director. We have a new transit director, for those of you who didn't know, that started in January, is working through this new system. But our former director and new director of planning and development, they're working closely together to make sure that this system is really an asset to the community, which I think with the amount of data that we already have has been positive, but I look forward to seeing those numbers grow in positive results. I wanted to offer that this Thursday night at 7 p.m., many of us attend usually in person the library's Black History Month event. This year it'll be virtual. You can find the link on the library's website. I believe it starts at 7 p.m. for streaming. And then with that, I'd like to, because there is not an in-person event, offer my proclamation for Black History Month while we're here. So with that, whereas Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for enriching our understanding and recognizing the central role of African Americans in U.S. history. Whereas the 2022 national theme for Black History Month is Black Health and Wellness, which honors medical scholars and healthcare providers now and throughout American history. The theme, Black Health and Wellness, considers traditions and practices common to African American communities that have been consequential to health outcomes throughout the years. And the theme calls us as a society to consider how our healthcare systems have served or underserved African American communities throughout our history, and it calls on us to consider the service levels of those systems today, especially in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas Black History Month is an opportunity for our community to learn more about the history of African Americans in Ross County and participate in programs celebrating and exploring that history. The Ross County chapter of the NAACP, the Chiillicothe and Ross County Public Library, and the Ross County Historical Society, among others, are to be commended for their efforts to create these opportunities. Now, therefore, I, Luke Feeney, Mayor of the City of Chiillicothe, Ohio, do hereby proclaim February 2022 as Black History Month in the City of Chiillicothe, and I encourage all residents to participate in programs and celebrations dedicated to honoring the rich heritage, extraordinary contributions, and ongoing accomplishments of African Americans. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. What an uplifting report, start to finish. Next, we'll move to our auditor, Ms. Spetnagel.
I have two items on the agenda tonight. The first one is an ordinance reappropriating funds that were appropriated in the 2021 budget and not yet spent or encumbered on a purchase order at the end of 2021. And what that is, if it's been advised that we can no longer carry cash forward without doing a separate ordinance. So these items have already been actually approved. It includes grants and then some capital items that we did not get completed last year. So that is just so we can get the money added and pay some bills. I'm asking that we waive the 3 read rule so we can get some vendors paid. The next one is an ordinance establishing a pay rate for a temporary part-time deputy clerk at the municipal court. I'm also asking that we waive the 3 read rule for that because there is an employee, she retired and has come back to help train some new staff. This new pay rate will keep her hired just for a short period of time until we get people trained. So that those are 2 items that I have, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Now move on to our law director, Ms. Villarreal.
Thank you, President Geringer. Now, in the law director's office, we're continually trying to maintain the turnaround with the ordinance requests in a timely manner. We're still dealing with the municipal court cases. Those are essentially nonstop. That's continuous. They close some, they open more. And as well as the formal opinions that we're requested of, whether it's from the law enforcement or the city department heads or whoever is asking for our service. So we continue to do that, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next is the report from myself as council president, and I'd just like to say thank you for everyone coming out. It's really nice to see everybody engage in this discussion. Moving on, we'll move to audience participation. Council Rule 22 does limit each speaker to a 5-minute presentation and a total limitation of 15 minutes per any single subject. If you get to the point where you're getting close to 1 minute left, I'll try to indicate to you to summarize your presentation. Anyone who wishes to speak, we do need for our records your name and address. So moving to audience participation. and the microphone may need to be turned on. It'll flash red until it connects.
There you go.
Okay, doesn't pay number one, does it? Okay, good evening, and my name is Janet Griffith. I live at 603 Comanche Road here in the city. We've lived there for almost 48 years now, raised our children there. I want to wish everybody on the council a happy Valentine's Day, and I want to also express that most citizens, we don't realize what you give up, how you attend meetings, the time you put in, and the dedication it takes to represent us. And I really appreciate that, and I hope everybody else here does tonight too. So now, as the problem is mine is chickens, and I've talked, this has been going on for a year, and I've talked to Mayor Feeney about it. I've talked to Jeff Carmine about it. I've also had much cooperation from Tara Gillum, who is not now, but was the Safety Service Committee chair. And it just seems like it's stuck in, I think, Jason Miller's desk. But anyway, there was supposed to be a piece of legislation that was being worked on. And I'm going to tell you the problem that I have. We live on Comanche where the backyards are very small and they are joined together from Oneida and then Comanche where we live. And our backyards are joined together. There's mostly fences. We have a cedar fence that was put up by McKinney Fencing years ago, and we take very good care of it. Over a year ago, people moved in, and they're letting chickens run in the backyard behind us. And there was starting out with a small amount, and I think now they're up to 8 or 10. This is happening that they fly over the fence, and this is at 606 Oneida. And they fly over the fence over to 604, and then they also make their way underneath the fence to our yard, and they're pecking in our, scratching in our mulch along the side of the garage. And I don't know about the 604 and what damage they're doing there. But last summer, when we sit out on our deck, we smell the chickens because they don't, they're free to roam and to do what they have to do in the yard, and it's never cleaned up. So we're smelling them. It attracted flies last year badly when you sit out on your deck. And also, they're pecking my fence, which we have stain or, with whatever you're supposed to do to preserve cedar fences. We do it every 5 years. They're pecking that fence. When I was pulling weeds on the other side of the fence, it's peck, peck, peck on the other side of the fence. These chickens run free. There were cucumbers and lettuce thrown in the yard so that they could eat last year. And this is a problem not only here, but I know there's an East End house that's having the same problem where they're getting into the streets. So something needs to be done with legislation. A nuisance officer is fine, but he cannot enforce anything unless there's legislation in place. And there should be legislation in place. As I understood it from Tara, the legislation hasn't changed since the 1800s, and you're allowed to have horses, pigs, goats, chickens, ducks, anything you want roaming your yard in the city. Okay. We live in the city because we love the city. We love the sidewalks. We love the city services. We love the city. We don't want to move. There's a lot of people in this same situation. City has to be kept nice for nice people to live there. So, and this is not conducive to being a nice situation. So I would appreciate, really, knowing when the meeting is for the safety service, knowing what piece of legislation is being worked on and the wording of it. And I know this is going to help many others too. So as I said, I appreciate the hard work that you all of you do. And I would appreciate cooperation also. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Graham. I'm the president and CEO of Adena Health System, also a resident here in Ross County, residing at 877 Larry Lane here in Ross County. And Adena Health System has been a part of this community for a long time, since 1895, and we've been very committed to our mission and our vision and being able to bring great access to care and continue to develop great care for the people of this county and other surrounding counties around us. Also to be able to do partnerships with communities and the resources of other agencies within our communities to find solutions and the best solutions we can for the well-being and health of our community. As for my question here tonight, I'm here as the CEO of Adena, but also as a resident of Ross County, regarding the recent decision and vote regarding Dr. John Gabus. Dr. John Gabus was nominated for a seat on the Health District, and I really, as the CEO of Adena, want to understand, when I think about what Adena stands for, and I think about what Dr. Gabus stands for this community, who has served here over 30 years as a family physician and still continues today, being a resident of the community for over 30 years, giving public service for 26 years as a county coroner, and the things that I can only imagine that man has seen over the years, and also the things that he has seen and led and advocated for from scene with the drug abuse and other things. Dr. Gabus is also, his position with Adena Health System is medical director of community services. And his sole job, and it's his passion, is to continue to look for partners and solutions to bring better health care, regardless of your ability to pay in this community. So my question tonight really is the council is to better understand when you look at the qualifications and requirements for the board on the health district, why Dr. Gabus would not meet the qualifications to be appointed to that board, because I feel that he's duly qualified for this position. And when I look at some of the comments that have been publicized on maybe some of the reasons why he was maybe not in the best interest of Ross County, also maybe liberal. I just want to understand the content of those comments, because when I think of healthcare and I think about somebody in their time of need, those comments do not resonate with what we do every day and what we do in taking care of our communities. So that would be my statement tonight, is just to better understand that and the reasoning and why Dr. Gabus would not meet the qualifications for that position. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Amy Van Voros, and I live at 281 Constitution Drive in Chiillicothe, Ohio. I'm a longtime resident. I did come here as an import, I guess, from Columbus. And I have certainly had a passion for working with children in Chiillicothe for my entire life. And I'd like to say that I'm very happy that we have City Council. I'm very happy that you are willing to give your time and effort for the betterment of the citizens of Chiillicothe, and I'm very thankful because I'm not one to run for City Council, so I appreciate all the work that you do. But I have to say that I was dismayed and disappointed while listening online to the council that the preceding two people were rejected to be on the Health Committee, Dr. John Gabus and Seal Corcoran. My question to you is why? Both have served their community honorably and in various capacities. Dr. Gabus have worked with him with so many projects that involve young people with drug addiction. I've never met a person that was more dedicated or knew more about what to do and how to contact and get people help. It's difficult to understand that rejection and difficult to understand why it was by party lines. I've lived in Chiillicothe. Since I have lived in Chiillicothe, all the many years I've been here, I have been committed to vote for the most qualified candidate, whether it was a Republican or a Democrat. It didn't matter to me. I wanted them to be qualified and represent this community and move the community forward, which I think we've done. It's a fabulous community. Is there a special reason that you voted along party lines? I'd just like to know. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, council members, for your service. My name is Dr. Stacy Saunders Adams, and while I am not a resident of Chiillicothe, I am a resident of Ross County, 3220 Cattail Road. But more importantly, I am one of the incorporators of a nonprofit here in Chiillicothe that responds to the needs of many of our most vulnerable populations in the community. And I wanted to speak on behalf of Seal Corcoran and Dr. Gabus as candidates for the Board of Health District appointment as nominees for that appointment. When I heard the decision for that, when I heard the council's decision, I was immediately taken aback because, as both of our speakers have already stated this evening, Dr. Gabus is an incredible candidate for that role. And when we think about the health of our citizens in Chiillicothe and Ross County, because as you know, the board serves both, there is no better person qualified to attend to the well-being of our citizens and our community. But what stood out to me most, as Ann indicated, was the divisive nature that that decision appeared to hold. The initial comments that came out from council seemed to point to different criticisms of the candidates, and then all of a sudden there were criticisms related to the process. And what that really says to me and says to probably everybody else sitting on this side of the glass is that those decisions were not made based on sound, factual data around the qualification of those candidates, but were made based on divisive party lines, and that's very concerning. And so what I would like to know from you, council, is that if those were not divisive party decisions, what data did you use to make those decisions?
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tracy Kemper. I live at 189 Vine Street. I'm here today to show my support for Dr. Gabus and respectively ask City Council members to reconsider their vote to appoint him to the Ross County Board of Health. As a lifelong resident of Chiillicothe, I'm embarrassed to say this is my first City Council meeting I've attended, but one I felt was very important. I met Dr. Gabus 10 years ago when our children attended Bishop Flagey together. We volunteered on the same bingo night and sold instant tickets. I watched people come up one after another to say hello, and we're all genuinely happy to see him, and he seemed genuinely happy to talk to them. I had no idea that he was a doctor. I asked him how so many people knew him, and he told me that he was also the county coroner, which led me to ask why he would take on a job like that, and his response was simple, that he loved his community, and this was a calling to serve the best that he could. When my husband died in 2014, Dr. Gabus showed up. He was one of the first people to reach out to me. He attended the funeral, he hugged me, and he reassured me everything would be okay. I've sat at church and watched Dr. Gabus show up to get communion to take to the sick and shut in. Since 2015, I also sat at the table as a member of the Hope Partnership Project. I've watched Dr. Gabus direct groups of sometimes 50 to 60 people from all over the state in different positions of office. He did this not for a pat on the back, but because he cares deeply and he wants to help his community, a community that was spiraling from the opioid crisis. It's my opinion that without him, the death rate in Ross County would be much higher. Dr. Gabus again showed up when we opened the Ross County Outreach and Recovery Center. He was one of the first supporters, and he often came just to shake hands and meet people in our community that desperately needed help. He didn't do it again for a pat on the back, but because he cares about his community. To deny him this position to sit on a health board is a disservice to everyone in our community. This vote should be based on what is best for everyone in the community as a whole, not based on your own personal beliefs that everyone in the community may or may not hold. You told voters that if elected, you would do better. So I'm asking you today as a citizen to please do better.
My name is Margaret Hill Daniels, and I live at 172 North High Street, and I'm also a long-term resident of Chiillicothe. In addition, I am also a former city council person. And I remember what it was like to be on city council, and I'm going to date myself, but the very first issue that came up was the issue about whether the ball field should move to the park. And that was extremely controversial. And it was a really tough decision, like what's best for the downtown, what's best for the community, what's best for the park, etc. And I actually turned to my party thinking, okay, maybe they'll help me figure this out because I was brand new at it. They didn't. Those decisions were made because I attended meeting after meeting after meeting. I heard both sides. I listened to what the community felt was important to them. I listened to the people who formed their park supportive group to find out what was best for this community. That was not a partisan decision by any means. I'm obviously of one party. I represented the downtown. The downtown was very strongly of a different party, but that didn't matter. I will tell you, the second time I ran, I had their support because what I was doing was not a partisan thing. I wasn't trying to defend one political party over another. I was trying to work for what was best for Chiillicothe. Now, I say that with great passion, and I appreciate how difficult it is as a new council member to take all of this. I remember when this side of the room was full of citizens, and you're going, oh my gosh, now what? And it can be overwhelming, but that's the job you were elected to listen, to really go through the procedures, those committee meetings, one after another, vote 1, 2, 3 readings. There is a reason for that. And that reason is it gives you time to think about what's best for everyone. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm not a speaker. I'm just a mom. My name's Christina Arredondo, and I live at 365 Allen Avenue. I will become very emotional about this because in 2015, I lost my oldest daughter to a heroin overdose. And since that time, I've developed this passion to try to save other moms from having to go through what I've went through. I'm a professional. I work hard every day. But my daughter fell into this opioid epidemic that none of us seen coming. There is one person that seen it coming, though, and that was Dr. John Gabus. Since then, I've opened a sober living house for women. Me and Dr. Stacy Saunders, we've opened a nonprofit organization where we operate the Ross County Recovery and Outreach Center. We also, in the past year, have opened up a prevention center because that's not something that our community focuses on. Because the next generation is going to follow this generation if we don't make changes. And our number one supporter in what we do in the community is Dr. John Gabus. Dr. Saunders Adams is a professor, and she's the one that speaks. She's the one that does well. But when it comes to this, I know that the things that we do aren't pretty. I know the things that we do are hard to see, but we're down there every single day. I just left there with some of the most mentally ill and some of the most hurting people that I've ever experienced in my life, but we do it every single day. And without the support from people in the health department that understand what these folks are going through, I don't know where a change is going to be made. So many times I've heard someone needs to do something, and this is what happens when they do, and that is just not fair. So I ask you to please reconsider your vote for Dr. Gabus for our Board of Health. Thank you.
Good evening, Council, Council President. I too appreciate all that you all do for the city and all you newly elected council members. I wish you the best. I'm here on a more of a personal level because I know both of those candidates personally, as many of us do in this room. I can remember back when Dr. Gabus came to this town, Dr. McKell and Dr. McCarter, who are two of the most fabulous doctors that ever graced Chiillicothe, searched high and low for a man to come in to be just half the man that had the bedside manner that they did. Okay? This man, they searched everywhere. I know this because my mom worked for him for 34 years, and the biggest joke in the office was that my mom was with them more than they were ever with their wife, you know. So when they brought Dr. Gabus to this town, I didn't live here for many, many years. Matter of fact, a lot of years I didn't live here. But when I came home, Dr. Gabus became my family doctor. I have never, When I get angry, I cry. When I get emotional, I mean, everything. When I'm happy, I cry. I'm a little emotional. I have never met a man that I thought would take the place of my Dr. McCarter, the most passionate man in his field that I have ever met. Not to mention everything that he has done for this city. When I moved back here, I came back here with my tail between my legs at the age of 40. I never wanted to live in this town, ever. But guess what, guys? It was the best place I could choose to raise a 2-year-old and an 8-year-old. And they are fine citizens today because of this city. Because of this city. Now, Seal Corcoran is a personal friend of mine. I know that many of you know her, but I don't know if you really know her. That woman does more in her little pinky finger than I could ever imagine doing for her fellow man. I have never seen a woman as compassionate as she is, who cares for everybody but herself. She served on that health board once before. And from my understanding, these were the mayor's choices. Now, I could be wrong on the political vibe of all this. And this is a voluntary position. Am I correct? Okay, this is a voluntary position. And much like you all are giving your time for what you are doing right now. But I ask you, I think one of the most humble things that you all could do as a council right now is to go back and do a little soul searching and maybe change your hearts and your minds on this. And that's all I ask. Good evening.
Ma'am, could we get your name and address for the record, please? Name and address for the record.
My name is Kelly Holdren Pillow, and I don't live in the city. I live out on 351 Mountain View Drive. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have 30 minutes that we have dedicated to this topic. Rule 22 has 15-minute cap, so we've actually gone twice the limit to make sure that we had a good slice of commentary on the topic. Is there anyone that has information or a topic unrelated to the nominations in the vote? We have a motion to extend the time. Do we have a second? We have a second by Mr. Prohl. Roll call on the motion.
Farrow,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Gillum,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Anthony Phillips,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Greg Phillips.
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll continue the conversation.
Good evening. My name is Adrienne D'Souza. I live at 526 Laurel Street with my husband, Varen D'Souza. It's a pleasure to be here at your city council meeting. Thank you for allowing us to come. And once again, I would like to thank you for the work that you do for this community and for the sacrifice you make. I do watch council meetings online sometimes. I work on Monday evenings, so I get off at 7. And so I rushed right over here. I could not just continue to stay in my seat and not say something. Phil Corcoran and John Gavis are two of the finest people that we have in our community. They are passionate about our community. They are passionate about what goes on in this community. and you won't find two people that will work harder. It was very surprising when I heard some of the comments. I heard some of the comments online. I talked to people in the community, and people are just shocked. They're just shocked that these two people got turned down. Let's not be like the rest of the government officials. Let's not be like the people in Washington. Let's not be like the people in the State House. We are a community that loves one another. We want the best for every person that's in Chiillicothe and Ross County. We need to get past these party lines. Just because some of us might not have voted for you doesn't mean that we're not supporting you now. I support who's ever in the White House, whether they are in my party or not, because once you're in that office, your voice, you are speaking for all of us. So do the right thing, reconsider what you said last Monday, and put these two individuals who are going to work hard for you and going to work hard for us in their rightful positions. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Olivia Payne. I live at 833 Sherman Road, Chiillicothe. I feel like I'm gonna also get emotional on this topic as well. For those of you who do know me on the council, you've seen me grow up. I am 26 now. I own my own home. I've made it a lot of the way by myself, working with individuals who are living with substance use disorders, and specifically youth. I've done a lot of international health travel with the purpose of studying people who are living with SUD and who are living with infectious illnesses because of that. Their communities provide them a lot of help, health resources, and it's really disappointing to see some of you vote the way you did. I'm completing my master's degree in epidemiology for infectious disease right now. And my goal is to work with people in SUD and work with people who have gotten infectious diseases from that. I do hundreds of peer-reviewed articles. I read all of them. I make sure I'm well informed. So yeah, I would also like to ask you to reconsider. This vote was absolutely ridiculous. Especially knowing some of you personally, I'm so disappointed. It's disgusting. Some of the things that I saw on social media that were reasoning behind your votes. You know, the party lines, I absolutely agree that is just, it's crazy to throw that in the mix when you're dealing with someone's life or death. And when I saw a comment about critical race theory, that does not belong in the same topic. I am hurt. I am a Black woman. This is so ridiculous. And to hear that from a city council member who is serving the community I came home to last year to live again and work hard for, I don't feel wanted. This is so disgusting to see on social media, on a public platform. It makes me shiver. I'm so grossed out by that. And I'm sure a lot of you can agree as well. That does not belong. How are you going to bring up a topic so sensitive at a time like this and integrate that with your choice to go against Dr. Gabus and Seal Corcoran? Saying that giving people 300 clean needles, and that same person who also supports critical race theory should just fall under because you don't believe in giving addicts access. What I suggest to you is you pick up one of those peer-reviewed articles, you listen to the educated people who have done studies for years, and then I want you to tell me differently. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Will Henderson. I live at 157 South Payne Street. I brought my daughter here tonight so she could understand a little bit about public government, local government, and about the opportunity for discourse in a public forum such as this. And tonight, I can honestly say I'm very pleased that I brought her. Now, whether I'm on the left side or the right side of an issue is irregardless, or it's regardless to me, right? I want to make sure she's okay. I want to make sure she has an environment where she's safe and she can grow up. Now, I have no doubt that every single one of you on council voted your conscience. And I'm going to stand here and I'm going to support you and support the right that you had to vote your conscience. I don't think for 1 second that you made a decision without proper thought and consideration based on the evidence you had at hand. You're not those type of people. None of you are. I know some of you very personally. Mr. Prohl, how long have we known each other? And we're on opposite sides of the political aisle, correct? That's correct. Mayor Feeney, you're my neighbor. Every time I see you out, don't I wave at you? We get along. We're neighbors. I applaud every single one of you for voting your conscience. Do not go against that. Stand up for your right to say what you think is right. Do not be bullied. Do not be intimidated. Every single one of these people here that came for public comment, they have a right to say their piece. That's what I'm doing. So I applaud all of them as well, even though I disagree, right? I may disagree with you. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to still, if you have a flat tire, I'm going to stop my car because you're my neighbor and I'm going to make sure you're okay. If I see you out, I'm going to wave to you. Do not fall into this garbage that's going on in our national politics. Don't demonize these people because they didn't vote the way you wanted them to vote. Talk to them. Understand what motivated them. Okay, so your mind's made up. Okay. Then council, stay exactly the way you are because you're not going to go ahead and get through to any of these people. All right? I'm done. I said my piece.
No, I'm glad you said that. That's not fair. And I don't think anybody.
Hi, friends. It's me again. My name is the Reverend Terry Williams. I live in the city at 47.5 East Main Street. That's above the Chamber of Commerce, for those of you who don't know. And I pastor Orchard Hill United Church of Christ, a congregation in the First Ward, proudly served by Mr. Phelps. I think for me, what is most troubling in this conversation about nominees and the heat that has been in this space is that many of us were deeply disturbed at the decision that you made, primarily because we have had such different experiences of the human being who you pass judgment on. For me, I've been in this community only about 10 years, so I'm a brand newcomer. I'm a Waverly guy like some people here, right? But when I came to this community in 2012, it was kind of rough out there. Jobs were still pretty scarce. The recovery had not come to Ross County at that time. People were still struggling to feed themselves. We were struggling to get food on the shelves at the pantry. It was a hard life for those of us in public service. I know I work for a different boss than you do, but it's the same kind of job. I'll tell you what really moved me. When I came down here and we began to start thinking about ways that we could get food into this community, we sat down with a group of folk with Mid-Ohio Food Bank, and they said, you know, we have these food drops, but they're really just for people up in the city, you know, where we can get things in and we can get things taken care of. It'd be kind of hard to get all that food down to where you are. We had people, though, who pushed. We had people like Tracy Harris and Janet Cunningham, folk that you know, and a woman named Seal Corcoran, who said, no, you know what? You need to bring that food down here to our people. Our people need to have that food. Folk at Mid-Ohio Food Bank kind of pushed back. They said, well, we'll give you what we can. And they played their little games. They said, well, we'll give you just the scraps of whatever's left over. We'll give you whatever we have too much of. And we kind of knew the game was afoot. They were going to try to give us whatever the leftovers were. And part of the plan was, if you couldn't get rid of it all, well, it just showed you didn't need all that food. About the 4th month in, things were looking kind of grim. They kept sending us rotten food we'd have to pick through with our hands. They'd send us too much of one thing or another. About 4 months in, they sent us 4 pallets of rutabagas. Who here buys rutabagas at the store on a regular basis? Anybody? We thought we were sunk. Janet and I looked at each other out on that line. We said, there's absolutely no way we're going to get rid of all these rutabagas. They're going to absolutely stop sending us food. Not Seal Corcoran. Seal Corcoran said, by God, we're at the library. They got to have a lot of recipes in here about rutabagas. And she went into that library and started talking to every one of them librarians. Went down and talked to Adrian, right? Talked to folk and said, we need to have some rutabaga recipes. She went up and down that line of people handing out these rutabaga recipes. Isn't it great? Isn't it wonderful? I love to cut up them rutabagas and freeze them. I don't know if she was being honest about that. She did all that she could to make sure we got through those rutabagas, and when we got to the end of that food drop, we still had half a pallet of rutabagas left to go, and you know what Seal did? Seal loaded those rutabagas up in her truck, and she drove from Tiffin Towers to the East End, handing out those rutabagas and telling people that there was a food drop. Why did she do that? Because she cared that people were able to get food in this community, and I have to tell you, I love all of y'all. I see all of y'all out doing all your work, but I've never seen you get a bunch of rutabagas and drive from one end of this city to the other. John Gabus in the same way. There isn't a minister in town who hasn't had an experience when we've been called to the death of a person who has died because they don't have the support of services in this community to keep them from dying from overdose. There isn't a one of us who hasn't gotten to a family who says, it's all right. John Gabus prayed for us already. John Gabus was here for us already. Let me tell you, folks, the reason that these people are here, the reason that some of us are fired up is because we know these people, and we hope you come to know them too. We know that these people are good fits. And we know that the talk about CRT, we know what that's about too. We know it has no business in this community, throwing those dog whistles around and yelling at folk, bringing that national politics and division in. We have worked with people on this council of every party. That man has appointed people of every party to that board. When Ben Daughters was nominated, do you think I was happy?
Terry, time.
No. Do you think I was happy? No.
I think your time's up.
Do you think I'm happy now? I hope you know. And we're going to keep coming back, even if we run out of time.
That's good. Thank you all for your participation. Very welcome. We're going to now move on to committee assignments, which we have several since our last meeting. I'll try to briefly go through them and quickly touch base. Assignment 22009, Finance, the lease agreement for SCBA fire equipment. (22010), also Finance. Subject matter is Ordinance 72115, disposal of property via auction. (22011), also assigned to Finance, release of funds held for fire insurance. Meeting dates and times to be released moving forward. That's what we've had since the last meeting. So from there, let's move on to our legislation. We have 5 items on our agenda this evening. Oh, did I miss new business? Apologies. I skipped over new business.
There's lots that I'd just like to address some of the comments tonight and say that please understand that we have a lot of new people on council, and new people, they're learning how this process works and what the job entails, and they're learning to reach out to the community. So please keep that in mind as we go through this. I've been on council a long time. And it might be old hat to me, but for a lot of people, this is a learning curve, and it's a big one at first. I would like to, give all of my friends on council the benefit of the doubt that they were taken off guard with the process, and I would ask respectfully that the mayor would resubmit both candidates for our next committee meeting so that council might reconsider both candidates now that they've had more time to research the candidates, research the process, reach out to the community, and that would also give us more time for community feedback from both sides of the issue. That's my request.
Thank you for pointing out we'd missed new business, which also brings me to old business, oddly enough. So anyone have old business to discuss?
I do. I wanted to jump on the mayor's comments about the snow removal because I live up on Burr Heights and the hill was lovely. And I'd like to thank the service department because I work all the way across the county. So getting off that hill is where my bread is buttered. And I was able to get off the hill really nicely. Now, I won't say that much about the roads once I got out of town, but, it was nice. It was nice being able to escape down the hill and be safe. And I want to thank our service department for all the hard work they do because that ice storm, as all of us are still recovering, has taken out trees and made it difficult on all of us. And I would also, along with that, ask if there's any, if the mayor might have any comments about people struggling with the removal of trees or debris.
I think the thing that my quickest comment and easiest reminder is that the city does offer on-demand yard waste pickup, which is something that everybody's very familiar with. Our large item pickup, of course, but if you call the service department and you have like bundled sticks and that sort of thing, we are happy to come by and pick those up as time allows. City, works quickly to clear roads if there's a tree crossing a road, that sort of thing. On private property, something we're not permitted to do. But definitely if you have, whether it's, yard waste in the spring or just, down tree limbs that you've broken down to a reasonable size, please call us and take advantage of that service. It helps keep the roads clear. It helps with stormwater. It's something that actually is something benefits the whole community. So thanks for bringing that up.
I think I'd be remiss without just addressing Mr. Prohl's comments there a second ago. A lot of the commentary was about the partisanshipness, the partisan nature of that vote. Both the yeses and the nos were partisan, and I think that should be noted. I also think that it'd be interesting to know if any of the council members actually spent any time and interviewed or interacted with the nominees prior to their vote, or if their vote was solely based off of party lines, because partisanship is a two-way street.
I personally voted the way I voted because I think Dr. Gabus and Seal Corcoran are qualified for that position from their past experience. I've known them both for years. I've never heard anything negative. I think the community backs them. The people in my constituents that I know back him 100 and back them both. So it wasn't a party decision. It was what's best for the community, as I felt. I represent my constituents.
Thank you for that. And it also noted it started with I think, and I think that's what the other council members thought as well. And additional members of the community reached out to multiple council members, much like these members showed up here. So it's just nice to see the process work as it does.
I myself have known Dr. Gabus since he replaced, and I was glad to see Mrs. Holdren mention, him replacing Dr. McCarter and McKell, because Dr. McCarter was my doctor when I was a wee lad many, many moons ago. And Dr. Gabus, and I remember when he came in, I was nervous because I had always seen Dr. McCarter, and when you're a little kid, that's your only doctor. And this new guy comes in, and he's young, and he didn't have the look of Dr. McCarter, but he definitely was a quality person. So, and then years of working with him just through, the public, I definitely always have his support. Now, as for Mrs. Corcoran, my support for her during the vote was based on the fact that she had served with council with me, and regardless of party, she had a great deal of understanding of how the city runs, and she also is a member of a lot of boards, and she's familiar with that. Plus, when you deal with these board positions, it's always you're just happy that someone's raised their hand and said they will do it, because most of the time we're looking under tree logs for people trying to shake somebody out. But I didn't think about it, and I've always tried to think, when we took our oath of office, one of the things that always sticks with me is that we run as a political candidate, but then once we're elected, we serve all the people. And that's why I always want to be open-minded, and it can be tough in today's world because there is a lot of partisan things at the national level. But in my years of service on city council, I have not noticed a great degree of that. People are Chiillicothians. They are my neighbors. They're my friends. I look at the people on this council as, my friends or potential friends. They're people that I've worked with over time, and I've been on when we had Democrat mayors and Republican councils, and Republican mayors and Democrat councils, and back and forth, but I never really noticed a difference. One of my longest term friends on council was Miss Pat Patrick, and Pat and I probably had the identical voting record over the years, and she was one of the longest serving Republicans, and I'm the longest serving Democrat. And for us to both vote the same, I mean, that shows where we're trying to put our priorities, and that's one thing that I always loved about this level of government. I've been asked, why don't you run for this or that and go up the chain? And it gets to the point where it is about party, and it is about these dogmas that we're supposed to do. But that's not here. Here is about what can we do for our neighbors? What can we do for our friends? And we're all neighbors and we're all friends. My friends that are Republican, my friends that are Democrat, it doesn't come up. It doesn't come into my decision. I try to think, are these people that are good Chiillicothians, good people for our community, regardless of party, regardless of, I don't even take that into account. Now, when it came out as a partisan vote, or what seems like a partisan vote, because I don't want to accuse people of voting partisan, it looked like that. But there may be, I don't have the understanding into everyone's thought process. And I was disappointed in that, because if that was the case, that's sad, because that's not what Chiillicothe's about. But I'm also willing to say that may not be what it's about. People have their reasons, and they're welcome to have their reasons, and we need to be understanding that people are going to vote differently. I know that in my past on council, I voted differently than a lot of people a lot of times. And sometimes it was just me and Pat voting differently, and we'd sit there and look at each other and we're not sure where we belong. But that is our right to vote different, to stand up for what we believe in. And I support everyone on council's ability to do that. I just want to make sure that, I don't want to see our young council unfairly judged until they have a chance to settle in, because I think that they are good people. They ran because they care about their city, and this was something new to them. And we do kind of sometimes rush things, and if this was rushed, I wanted to give them an opportunity to reconsider it. And if the vote comes out the same, it comes out the same. That's the way it goes. But I do want to protect our council members from any undue judgment. I think that all of you deserve to have your voice heard, and you were voted by the public to have your voice heard. And that's a great responsibility and a great privilege. So yes, my decision making on this, definitely not of a partisan slant. I guess I never really thought about Dr. Gabus as having a politics, because, like I said, I've known him since he was a child. I don't remember him ever telling me while I was at the doctor's office which party to vote for. He did tell me often, not to run around the house with scissors or things like that. But those are lessons that you just have to learn. So I will concede that to you. And like I said, I do want to let all my friends on council know that I have your back, and I do support your choices, whatever they might be, whether they agree with me or they're not. I do support your right to those. Thank you.
President Geringer, I would, as someone who voted no, I'm certainly have been blown away by the responses. You're in trouble when your mom calls from Florida. Yeah, got it. And leads with the throat clearing and uses your middle name. And Dr. Gabus was my mom and dad's family physician for a long time, and plus he's a Steelers fan. And my parents are from basically the Pittsburgh area, and I hold those black and gold, or black and yellow, as Wiz Khalifa says, near and dear. For me, this was, I wouldn't call it a learning curve, because oddly enough, those of us that were elected 2 years ago are now the second most tenured individuals on the entire city council, behind Councilman Prohl. I'll own the vote. I'll always own my vote. My vote was certainly not on Dr. Gabus's qualifications. The majority of the conversations that I have had since that vote have been certainly centered around Dr. Gabus. And the qualifications, and I know Mr. Graham, you had asked qualifications. I think I would just be out on Looney Tunes Island if I tried to say he's not qualified. And some of you would say, well, then why did you vote no? The process can be unique, and I think we've heard that it can be at times awkward. And so for me, it was simply I needed more time because of calls I was already getting with issues that I don't claim to be completely aware of. I spent a lot of time with a lady I go to church with, Natasha Rapp. Some of you may know her. Love her to death. I value and respect her opinion. I had to go kind of dig around on my own to find out some issues that were already being asked. So walking in at 6:30 for a 7 o'clock vote, with already receiving things in the air about certain things going on, I said, I don't know. I've not even been presented with these two candidates yet officially. And so for me, the no vote was to carve out more time to adequately vet process. I am aware of, another very well-respected doctor in the community that is interested in being considered for the Health District Board. And so, I just look forward to the process playing out. I appreciate all of you coming, the passion. it matters. It really does. So I look forward to working with the mayor and city council to continue to relook at this and to consider this moving forward in a timely fashion. I just wanted to explain my reason for my vote, and thank you.
I'd like to give my reason for my vote that evening as well. We came in at 6:30 to 2 names sitting on the table for us to vote on. Prior to that, I didn't know anything about the Health District Board. Can everyone hear me? I see someone kind of going like this. Prior to that, I didn't know anything about the Health District Board, and I certainly did not know much about Dr. Gabus. I've learned a great deal about him tonight. I knew he was a corner of Ross County, and that was the only information I had. I knew Sil Corcoran from being on council with her, but didn't know how she was qualified to be on this board, or how Dr. Gabus was qualified to be on this board, or if any other doctors or anyone else was considered for the board, or if it was just the 2 names that was given to us. I didn't feel like I had the information in front of me to make an informed decision for the voters that put me in this position. And I would certainly have liked to have had that information in front of me before I made a vote. I have learned a great deal from all of you this evening, and I respect everything that I've heard and appreciate you coming and sharing information with us this evening. Had we had some of this information prior to making the vote, the last one we did, the vote may have gone differently. So again, thank you for coming this evening. It wasn't until after that vote that evening that I went home and researched the Health District Board and found out that in 1978, the county and the city boards joined together, and we have 3 appointed from the city and 4 from the county, and that council votes on them, and that the mayor recommends the appointments. I would certainly like to see a different vetting process so that we know who has been considered and why these certain names are coming to us. Thank you.
I guess we're expected to say something. Not that we have to. I don't know that I could add anything else to what the other Phillips here, Greg, has said, or what Kathy Payne just said. But I would consent to their reasoning. As a doctor in this community of 25 years, a chiropractic physician and holistic doctor, in a world where COVID and disease and health has mesmerized and put everybody in a trance. This is what we're fixated on. The health board is no small nomination. And being new at this, when we're not presented an opportunity to vet or ask questions, it would be irresponsible of me to have voted any other way than no. So I have no idea how this process will play out. But if it does, we will continue to take everybody's information into account. I appreciate everybody coming tonight.
I also want to thank everybody for coming. I believe that my position was stated that I, along the same lines as Councilman Phillips and Councilwoman Payne, that I wanted to see the process better improved, that I wanted some type of information. I by no means have any disregard for Dr. Gabus's ability or Seal Corcoran's. I believe they're probably both fully capable of doing that job. But I just wanted to see the process better improved. When we walked into that request, I had no idea that we appointed anybody to the Ross County Health District. I've now educated myself on that process. I've read the bylaws. I've read the ORC for the Ohio Health District, the Ross County Health District. I've read all that information. I've also read the city ordinances for it. So, I've made sure that I've educated myself on that process and exactly what we need to do for the community and what we need to do for ourselves. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? I'm confused as I understand the process confusion and y'all being new, but why vote the previous DRB candidate with no problem at all?
As for myself, I knew what the DRB was, so I had knowledge what they did and what that, but I didn't have any knowledge about the health district.
And the DRB was not in play as far as receiving calls from constituents already, hearing things. It was all centered around potential health district nominations. So I wasn't getting any kind of information from constituents on that particular board, and like them also know what it does.
Moving on to petitions and correspondence received by the clerk. Did you receive any petitions or correspondence?
No.
From there, we'll move on to our legislation. We have 5 items on our agenda this evening. Mrs. Lambert, whenever you're ready, please start with item number 1.
Item number 1 is the first reading of a resolution granting use of certain portions of 2nd Street to the Buck 50, incorporated from April 21st, 2022 through April 23rd, 2022 for its annual Buck 50 relay race. The second is the first reading of an ordinance reappropriating funds that were appropriated in the 2021 budget and had not yet spent or encumbered on a purchase order at the end of 2021 and declaring an emergency. The third is a first.
Does anybody have a motion on that one? The second.
I make a motion to approve the second piece of legislation, reappropriate the funds.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I make a motion to waive the 3-read rule on number 2.
Motion made by Mr. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Prohl. Motion to roll call on the motion.
Payne,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gillum,
Yes.
Henderson, Greg Phillips,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Anthony Phillips,
Yes.
Prohl,
Yes.
Nickerson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Roll call on the legislation.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Payne, Gillum,
Yes.
Henderson, Greg Phillips,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Anthony Phillips,
Yes.
Farrow, Prohl.
Yes.
Legislation passes. Moving on to item 3.
It's the first reading of an ordinance establishing a rate of pay for a temporary part-time deputy clerk at the Chiillicothe Municipal Court and declaring an emergency.
And I'd like to waive the 3-read rule on this legislation.
Motion made by Ms. Preston, seconded by Ms. Gillum. Roll call on the motion to waive the 3-read rule.
Henderson,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Greg Phillips,
Yes.
Payne, Anthony Phillips,
Yes.
Prohl,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Gillum,
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
Motion passes. Roll call on the legislation.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Greg Phillips,
Yes.
Payne, Kroll,
Yes.
Anthony Phillips,
Yes.
Gillum,
Yes.
Henderson, Farrow, Preston.
Yes.
Legislation passes. Moving on to item number 4.
A first reading of the ordinance amending section 351.13 of codified ordinances of the city of Chiillicothe, Ohio.
This will move on to the next meeting.
Number 5 is first reading of an ordinance allowing a covered entry at 14 through 16 East 2nd Street to encroach onto the sidewalk and city right-of-way and relocating a street light and sign at the property owner's expense.
This will also move on to the next meeting. Does anyone have anything else that they would like to add or bring up at this time? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion made by Mr. Farrow, seconded by Ms. Payne. Meeting adjourned.
We have to take a roll.
We have to vote to adjourn.
All right, roll call on the adjournment.
Nobody say no.
I think it'll be 8-1 if I do.
Payne. Yes. Nickerson.